This isn't your soft launch. This is the hard launch, where we talk about what it takes to build love, businesses, and everything in between.
All right. Julian, it is so great to have you. I feel like we go way back. We've known each other now for, I don't know, several years. You've seen me on this journey, evolving, figuring out my way as I'm a first-time founder. And I feel so excited to have you on this podcast because you've seen the evolution that I've gone through, and this to get here has been, quite the push. And I'm so honored to have had you kind of in my corner, supporting me through and checking in with me along the way. And this is kind of the culmination of that. So I am excited to kind of share your story with the world, and let's get into it.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you for having me. I'm so excited for you guys.
Thank you so much. That means the world. So I am so curious. I want to dig into, how did you know that you were good at designing? Like, how did you get that itch, and how did you figure out that that was your lifelong calling, and that you had, the taste, the style, the aesthetic, and like that was, how did you know that that was in your DNA and that you wanted to build something from that?
That's a good question, actually. It's an evolution, right? It's totally an evolution. You kind of you I think I had, like, if I really look back at it, like, I had an inkling for this ever since I've been a little kid, you know? I I actually come from a family of architects, and so, my dad was an architect, my stepdad was also an architect, and so, there was always kind of this idea and lots of talk all the time about design. And what we're doing over here, we're building this building over here, and this is kind of like a challenge that we're working through. And the way that that kind of came about for me as a kid was in Legos, actually. And so I was like obsessed, obsessed, obsessed with Legos. Um, and I was so crazy. My sister, if she was on this podcast, she'd be like, "Oh my god, you are a nightmare with the Legos." Because I would only wanna use, like, one certain color, and it, like, had to be this specific aesthetic, and, like, it couldn't be multicolored, and it needed to be, like it's been an aesthetic, like, from day 1,
I
basically.
love that. Is your closet color coded? I have to
Oh,
know.
absolutely,
Okay.
100%. My closet is color coded, my shoe closet is color coded, like, everything is, like, the
I
way.
knew it. Not
And,
surprised.
yeah, and so it's always kind of been there, in my DNA and shown up in different ways, and then I stumbled into events really in college. I started doing, events because I needed to pay my way through college, and so I created my own job. I created my own little event company, at the University of Oklahoma. I did sorority parties for 4 years, and I got to design those. I basically had like a little storage unit of every single theme party you could possibly have, and I made all of my friends do jobs within the party. So, like, you were gonna be the bartender, and then my other friend did the food, and then my other friend was gonna do the security, and then I paid myself through the bus company because there's only one bus company in Oklahoma, basically, that did these sorority parties, and so then I really kind of got the itch, for the hospitality piece of things. I studied international studies and negotiation, so it kind of has all morphed into what it's become now, but, um, yeah,
How interesting.
it's been a wild ride.
I love that you started in sorority parties. I mean, what better audience that like would love the aesthetic and the details that you bring. You found your like target audience so early on. I love
Yeah,
that.
and then I went and, like, learned some other things, like, I went and worked in corporate events, and I was like, "Oh, no." Like,
They don't care about the aesthetic
aesthetically, not I'm out, you
there. No.
know? And then I went to work in hotels, and I kind of really did find my calling in hotels, because that's that that's who can teach you truly about luxury if that's not the world you grew up in, and I think I always say I owe the most to Rosewood Hotels and Resorts. That's kind of the hotel group that I worked for a long time, in and out, and they taught me everything about hospitality and how to treat people well, and also how to be surrounded by a beautiful aesthetic and how to achieve a beautiful aesthetic.
Interesting. I mean, what a great foundation. Rosewood Hotels is amazing. Known around the world. Yeah, shout out to Rosewood Hotels. That's an amazing foundation to have, and I think so many people need to kind of go through that, like, those building blocks or those apprenticeships to like really understand design and, aesthetics and what looks good together. And it's so interesting because, people oftentimes will go at trying to do it without somebody who has the expertise for design because they think they can do it, and it really does take time to kind of finesse and polish that skill and, like, understand how to design and how to make things look good and the aesthetic behind it, so I love that you did that. How did you walk me through, like, the beginning early days of your business, and how did you like, what it is today? Like, it wasn't this overnight, I'm sure. You've been doing this for what, 30 some years now, right? So walk me through like the early days. Like what was the grind that you went through to get this up on its feet and like build it to what it is today? And I know that's not a short story to tell, but walk me through the early days. Like how did you get your first customers? How did you really stand this thing up?
Yeah, it's so funny. So May of next year will be 10 years actually in Julian Leaver Events, which is
Wow. That's
amazing. Um,
congratulations. What a
Thank
milestone.
you. It is pretty wild, you know? And in the beginning, it was me, right? It's in the beginning, it's scrappy. It's always scrappy in the beginning. And it's funny, when I went so I was with Rosewood, then I went away to like learn some more in like decor and rentals and production, and then I came back to Rosewood. And when I came back to Rosewood, I really knew that I wanted to keep my foot in the wedding planning space so that I would understand the trends and how things were moving and all of that. So I made a deal with Rosewood that I could do one wedding a year, like a one destination wedding a year that I would be able to plan kind of on my own so I could keep my foot in the industry. And so that really was the very first client of, I would say, Julian Leaver Events. In 2016 is when this business was born. And I had a client who I'd known for a very long time, and she wanted to get married in Cabo. And I said, "Yeah, I can do this. I can do one a year, and this would be so much fun. And let's go like have an adventure, you know?" And so I kind of had the idea that maybe I was gonna need to leave Rosewood because there were a lot of changes happening and they were making some shifts. Nothing bad, really just like shifts, and I didn't really wanna leave Dallas because that was the opportunity that was given to me, right? And they were like, "We'd love for you to move to California. This is great. We have this other thing. It's gonna be amazing." And I thought, "You know what? I've spent all this time building this network and these connections and diving into the wedding industry that is Dallas. And I don't wanna give that up, you know? I think maybe I need to stay here and figure this out, and so I saved all my money from that first client, and that's how I paid myself for the whole first year, and I said no a lot, you know? I think that's the thing that I tried to do in the beginning was really say no, like, I left Rosewood, and I immediately went into full service wedding planning and design, and I never did month of coordination in this business, I never did partial, because I had done that in my business before, you know? And I thought, "No, this is I need to come if I wanna do this, I wanna do it the right way. I have one shot in Dallas to do that, and I need to do it this way." So, I that was kinda my plan. I'm gonna take this first year, I'm gonna figure out all the stuff, I'm gonna say no a lot, I'm gonna find the right clients. And luckily, I had come from Rosewood, so I had great connections, and I know both of those hotels very well, so they would refer me business, and I would refer them business, and it kind of just helped me build my business in the beginning, you know? And I'll also say this too, I I also at the same time, I got sober, actually. And so I've been sober for 9 years now, 10 years in next June. And yeah, it's like they're always it's interesting, my business and this are, like, linked intrinsically together because I knew I only had 1 shot to do it, and I wanted to make sure that I did it, like, the exact right way. And I wanted, like, the clearest head and the clearest, like, runway to be able to, like, launch myself into this business. And so, what was great is that it started as a destination business. And so, it's always been this hybrid of, like, Dallas and destination, Dallas and destination, Dallas and destination. And I love that because it does keep it scrappy because every time you do a destination wedding, you're really working at a new place with new people, with new vendors, maybe in a new language. And so you have to be able to figure it all out. And yeah. And so I did that for 5 years. I did this business by myself with like maybe an intern here, maybe a little assistant there for 5 years. And then COVID. And what's interesting is that in COVID, I think a lot of people put like a big pause on their business. They said, okay, I'm just going to pause it. But I pausing their lives. Yeah, 100%. But I thought I need to double down here because if everybody else is not working on their business, I need to be working on my business because that's when you get ahead. That's when you have the time to actually work in your business as opposed to like on your business? And so I took the time to revamp everything. I revamped my website. I revamped my um all my marketing materials. I revamped my blog. I revamped everything so that whenever we were coming out of COVID, I was ready to go. And in that time, I hired my first employee, whose name is Sarah Kane, and she's amazing. And she's an incredible designer. And the nice thing about her is like we're like designed in two different ways. Like I feel like I am more of a overall designer. Like I look a little bit bigger at the big picture. I'm like, okay, let's like make a decision. Let's keep moving. Let's keep the process. Like I'm more of a process designer, I feel like. Whereas Sarah Kane is more of like I am going to noodle on the perfect ribbon for you for 10 hours. Or I'm going to go down this very deep dive search for this chair that's like the perfect exact chair, which I can do, but Sarah Kane can do it better. So you want to have Sarah Kane doing that for you because she cares deeply about it. I care, but I'm also the one that says like, okay, we have to make a decision. What are the top two? Show us the top two. Boom. Okay, now we're going to decide from these two.
If we
So
can't
it
find the ribbon,
takes
move forward.
if we can't find the ribbon, we gotta pick the best one. And so we have this really nice like ebb and flow with the design process where now really she is like doing the design boards and then we're like running them through the client approvals. So it's been this evolution through the years, and like in the last 5 years, I would say that's kind of been more the evolution is like figuring out what parts we each do best and then like running with those parts. And now it's grown. Now there's 4 of us and we
Wow.
have a production manager and we have an operations manager and we all pretty much touch every single wedding and it's fun. It's fun. It's very stressful, but it's fun.
I feel like that just emphasizes the importance of having the right team and having the right partners who are complementary to your skill set because it doesn't
It
just
is.
apply to the wedding business, it applies to all
Small
businesses.
business. Do
Um
what you do best and hire the rest out.
Exactly, and also, like, how important it is to hire the right people because you're literally getting in bed with that person to, like, build and work on a project that is, like, your soul, right? Like, that is something that you are building, and you're building it with someone, and you need the right person who complements your skills, not sort of impacts that in a negative way, so that's so important and so great that you were able to find those people, and I just wanna emphasize that because I know from my experience, and I'm sure so many other founders and entrepreneurs have the same experience where if hiring the right people just makes or breaks the business. And also how smart of you to, like, get ahead during COVID because so many people paused, and you took that as an opportunity to make sure that you were ready when we got out, not knowing when it was that we would be getting
And it
out
was
because nobody knew.
wild.
Yeah.
Yes, and it was like a wave. It was insane. Like, my 21 was crazy, but my 22 was like, "Whoa, what is even happening?" Like, I'll never do that again. I don't wanna die?
Yeah.
Like, it was way too many weddings,
I mean,
but
you were in the business that was impacted the most because weddings were
yeah.
paused, and it was just
Yeah, and we
impossible to
hadn't
catch up.
worked in so long? Pausing, there was a, like it was nice pause? Because the clients had all paused, and so it was, like, an actual time to reflect and figure out what would work and what wouldn't work and what was working, and I think it that shift also, like, in that 5-year mark was also the place where I started paying a lot more attention to data and how my website was being used and how the marketing was working and all of those different elements of data and, like, then tweaking it to respond to the customers because what I always say is the customer is always telling you what they want. They're telling you by actually telling you in person meetings.
Yes.
They're also telling you by clicking on certain things or they respond to certain things or they like an Instagram post the most? So there's they're always telling you who they are and what they want, and so if you're not shifting and adjusting and moving, then what are you doing?
Yes, but when you paused, you've finally had time to, like, look at that operational side of the business and the data side and all the things that probably, like, you're on such a fast-moving train when you're, like, in productions back to back, you're going, 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 like, there is as and, this applies to all businesses too. Like, as an entrepreneur, I feel that, right? Like, you're going, going, going. It's very rare that you have a minute to pause and actually, like, dig deep into, like, the nitty-gritty of the operational side of the business, right? The data, the operations, updating your website, like, all that those things take time, and it's very difficult when, like, the train is moving fast, and you've gotta get, like, other things prioritized to, like, sit down and actually, like, take a minute to think about that.
Totally, and
Um,
small businesses don't have HR departments.
no, no
I
HR,
HR, so I need to,
no
like,
operations.
get our shit together, you
Yes.
know?
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes a minute to do that.
Yes, 100%. I love that that was an opportunity for you, and I think a lot of people did take it as an opportunity, but some maybe didn't and, like, put a pause on everything, and I think those that, like, kind of saw that as an opportunity really were able to, like, move forward. Walk me through your design process. You touched on it a little bit, but I'm curious, like, how do you go from, like, the initial connection with a potential inquiry or customer and, like, move that along and, like, what does your design process look like? And I know you mentioned you have a team that also works with you on it, but how do you take what's in their head and create from that? What's that
Yeah.
process look like?
I mean, it really does start obviously with the initial inquiry call, right? We're gaining information, we're having them describe, we're having them use their words, we're understanding all of those things. And we kind of divide the process into like the feeling part of the process and then like the vibe part of the process to just like use a, you know,
We love
new
good vibes.
word. It's all about a vibe,
It's all about
right?
it.
But we work on the feeling part of the process at the beginning because those are the vendors who can usually only do one event a day. Okay. And so that's like photo, video, hair and makeup, entertainment. Right. And I think that those are very integral parts of the design process because as you are making the decisions about those specific vendors, you're giving us little tidbits about how you make decisions or about how you entertain. And really, it's about how you want it to feel, right? When you look at a photo, how does that make you feel? And when you're looking at multiple photographers, you're like, well, this one makes me feel this way, and this one makes me feel this way, and this one makes me feel this way. So you're telling us exactly like how you want it to feel, right? Same with video, the same thing. Same with entertainment. How do you want it to feel? When you walk in the room, how do you want it to feel? When you dance your first dance, how do you want it to feel? And that feeling is what you're going to take away from this wedding, right? And hair and makeup, how do you want it to feel? How do you want to look at yourself in the future and look back on this and what is that going to make you feel? And so we deal with the feeling vendors first, right? And that gives us a good understanding about how you're gonna make decisions. Are you a quick decision maker? Are you a longer decision maker? Do you need more options? Do you need less options? Are you decisive? Are you not decisive? Like, you're telling us, again, information, 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 right? And then our design, the actual design process really does kick off with Pinterest. And I know some people say like Pinterest this and whatever, but really Pinterest is a great tool to gather all of your thoughts in one place and for us to walk through them. It's not to copy anything on Pinterest. It is really for you to show us like I like this fork or I like this lamp or I like the whole feeling of this event. Or a lot of the times it's no's. It's like we always say, put things on your Pinterest that you hate because we want to know what you hate. We always say that you find the yeses through the no's. And so you're going to
I
say
love
no a
that.
lot more often, a lot more
Mhm.
often. No, 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 no. That's fine. Throw all the no's. This is your wedding, not my wedding. I don't have any skin in that game, right? Like, if you don't like the idea, I will put it back in my pocket and I will pull it out for the next person that it's kind of maybe right for. And then they might
Mhm.
love it and we get to do it. Sarah always says the same thing too. She's like, you're not offending me, like I didn't make the food. So I I'm good. Hit me with it. And if it's a no, it's a no. So we start with Pinterest. And then that gives us like a good vibe. But then we move immediately into stationery because stationery is the very first place that you can actually touch and feel something in the wedding planning process. You can feel the paper, you can see how it is on the page. They usually they print your name so you can see it in like 90 different fonts, you know? And it's the first place where you really get a good idea of you've said to us that you are modern, but then we go to stationery and what you have selected is really more traditional with a twist, right? Or it's more contemporary, not really modern, or it is more French and not really American, right? Like there's different, it just so much more is revealed in that process. And so then from there, we move into design, the actual design of your event, because we've learned all of these amazing things about you because you've told us
Mhm.
all of this information again and again and again. So now we can do the design board that really is the actual design and the vibe of how your event is going to look and feel and what the energy is going to be. And so then I would say more often than not, 99% of the time, we nail that process on its head. Like,
Hmm.
right, exactly right. The only time, I mean, and I can tell you exactly the time that it wasn't right is that someone completely changed their mind, right? Or did not exactly put what they really wanted on their Pinterest. If they're
Mm.
being really honest with themselves, usually it's like exactly right on. One time only have we ever had to really redo a design board completely.
Wow.
Um, but
It's a
it's because
pretty good success rate.
it is, and I'm really proud of that because
Yeah,
we push people off, and people all the time are like, "Design, design," because that's the pretty parts, right? Like, it's the pretty, and we're always like, "No, no, no, you have to do your homework before you get to play with the pretty things," you know? Like, you have to do your guest list. I can't do that for you, right? Like, you have to set up your registry. I can't do that for you. You need to set up your wedding website. I mean, I can do most of that for you, but you have to give me a lot of information to be able to do it. So, you have to do all of these other things that we learn more about you before you get to that part, because then when we get to that part, we know you so well, we are like inside your head. And
that's
so,
amazing.
yeah, it's been fun. It's been really cool to watch how that works. Um, and people, when they get to that process and they've been pushing to get to that process, they're like, "Oh, I understand now why we waited," you know? And
Totally.
we also like to wait a little bit too because things change, like new linen lines come out or new rental products come, or the closer you get to the event, the prettier and more fun things you get to play with. And so the bucket in your budget is already kind of defined there, right? Like we're playing within your parameters. We're just waiting until we get to play with the best things. And so,
There's also a seasonality aspect to it, right? Like, certain things are available in certain seasons, and so you have to kind of wait to, like, reveal those, but I'm curious, have you ever been in a situation? I mean, you do such big weddings, so I'm curious, have you ever been in a situation, especially early on in your career, where you took on something and said yes, but it was you had the feeling of like, "Oh, shit, am I gonna be able to do this?" Because I feel like every entrepreneur goes through those feelings, especially in the beginning, and I'm curious, I'm curious what that inflection point looked like where you were taking on events and then slowly started taking on bigger events and bigger events. But was there a moment where you took something on and you've had the feeling of like, how am I going to get this done? I don't have the experience yet, or I haven't done such a big one yet, or something like that might have gone through your head?
yeah, I mean, I would say anything destination related in the beginning was very terrifying. You know, you're working in another country. You don't know
I bet.
exactly how it's going to work. You don't know exactly how this is going to go. Um, You're trying to find your way. You're also trying to find the lingo because the verbiage in different countries in different ways, and, like, it's very confusing, but I've always kind of been scrappy, and so I was like, "Okay, well, I'll just figure this out, and we'll figure it out." And, like, a wedding now is, like, a drastically different experience than a wedding, like, 10 years ago for sure,
Oh,
you
for
know?
sure. But how did
Um
you kind of quiet that voice down and just keep pushing forward? Like, I mean, some people, may hear that and be like, "Oh, I'm not gonna be able to do this. I'm just gonna have to say, like, I'm not ready for this yet," right? But
Yeah.
it
I have
feels like
never
you
had that voice. I've never had
interesting,
that voice. It's
interesting.
and I think a lot of that is, like, being a child of trauma, right?
Hmm.
Like, I always say in the wedding industry, we're like hashtag children of trauma, because we are trying to prove something to someone, right? Or I think all humans really are hashtag children of trauma. We're all just trying to prove something, you know? But weirdly, I've never had that specific voice in my head that said like, it's not your time yet, you know? No, it's never been like that. It's always been like, "Oh, wow, this is kind of cool. This is kind of a challenge. Let's go and try to, like, climb this challenge or, like, do this adventure and see see what it is and, like, see how close I can kinda push myself to the edge a little
Just
bit.
get it done. Exactly. I feel like that's the exciting part of it. You just have to, like you put yourself in those situations, and maybe you are feeling maybe a little fear or, like, you're not ready yet, but you just get it done and you prove it to yourself. You prove it to, like you prove yourself that you could do it, and you see it on the other side, and it just feels that much more kind of fulfilling, right? How have
Totally.
you
Well, and I
avoided
think also the other thing I would say this too about that. I think it is a different mentality in terms of seeking information. Like, I have always been willing to say, "I do not know this answer," or I've never been afraid to say that to a client. "I'm not gonna bullshit you. I don't actually know this answer. Let me go find this answer out, and I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna report to you, and I'm gonna tell you, like, this is X, Y, and Z, Y." Like, I'm not gonna try to bullshit you because I have seen, and I think I watched other people make that mistake in my career earlier on because that was the beauty of working in hotels, honestly, is getting to work with lots of different planners and see how everybody kind of handles things. And so I thought, no, no, I don't want to do that. I want to be the guy that always says, like, I don't know the answer, even though I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm going to go find that out for you. And it shifted. It shifts the mentality. It shifts the level of trust with your client.
you got to your yes by the figuring out the no's. I feel like you got to your style of planning by looking at the planners you don't wanna emulate, is what it sounds like, which is really cool. Yeah. So how have you avoided I mean, you've been doing this again for so long. How have you avoided burnout or maybe like feeling like this isn't like, getting tired of it, right? Like people who do something for a really long time oftentimes get to a point where they feel like, okay, I'm going to pivot completely or I'm sort of done with this. But it sounds like you've done a really great job of kind of avoiding that burnout, especially in a field or in an industry that oftentimes can lead to burnout quite
Yeah.
quickly. How have you avoided that?
I think now, like, in the last, what, 3 years, has been about employees. I think I was really afraid and actually, maybe that is the thing I was the most afraid of. I think I was afraid of trusting anyone else to do it, right? And but by adding more employees and letting them make mistakes, that maybe it's a mistake that's not going to hinder the actual outcome of the wedding, right? But it's a mistake within the process of planning the wedding, like, "Oh, okay, we forgot to order this linen or whatever," for this prototype. And, like, you can get it like a B plus on your report card, you know? But by letting people make mistakes, they get better, and also they, like, take ownership themselves of it, and so, like, by spreading out the work, it actually is a lot better. It's been a lot less burnout because I think as planners, especially planners, we inherently are psychotic about control, and so we have to let it go some, and that's been the way for me is by divvying up the load.
Getting the help, right? Like, it's not all
Mhm.
you,
Yeah.
and
It
yeah,
can't be up to
and
you.
it
It's
can't
too
be.
complicated. It's too
Yeah,
complicated. And
100%.
and if you don't have someone else to bounce ideas off of, then you are, like, in big trouble.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. I mean, yeah, if you're doing it in a vacuum, you're building for yourself, right? Like, you have to be building for others and know what others are thinking and have some sort of a sounding board to, like, actually successfully build something that can scale and grow that is bigger than you, right? Someone asked me the other day, like, "What do you think success is in your mind?" And for me, it's building something that's bigger than me, right? And the only way to do that is to bring other people in because otherwise it's just gonna be me in my bubble building, and where am I gonna go with that? So, I absolutely agree. Um, before we switch gears, I wanna ask you, I know you've done a lot of big weddings. What is the craziest, biggest wedding you've done or some of the craziest things you've seen what's, I guess, the craziest thing someone's asked you to do for their wedding? And I gotta know this. I gotta know this. I gotta know this. Now I gotta know.
Things I can't say on camera.
Oh,
Um,
no.
I know, but it's okay. I
Well,
mean,
now you're leaving us hanging.
I think it's just like honestly, like, the biggest thing is when someone comes to us and says, "We are gonna actually host everyone in this experience. Like, we're gonna pay for their flights, we're gonna pay for their hotels, we're gonna literally, like, full service from soup to nuts, host this entire experience."
Wow.
That is always the biggest challenge. No matter where we are, what we're doing, or anything like that, it is just responsibility for a lot of people, and
100%.
that is that is a heavy thing. And that's where, like, the 4 posts of myself plus the other 3 people who work with me, um, we can divide that weight amongst ourselves. And that's also where you, like, really just have to trust your vendor team. You have to trust those creative partners that you've done events with for years and years and years, that they're gonna continue to do exactly what they've said they're going to do. I think a lot of this job is telling someone that you're going to do something and then actually doing it.
Uh-huh.
And that is where success is found in this industry, and also where people get off track a lot because they promise more than they can actually deliver. And so I think now it's more about taking on that responsibility and being terrified of that responsibility that actually motivates you to do it to your, like, nth degree. Nothing a client could really ever say to me is worse than anything I would ever say to myself, you know? Like, that's just, I think, who you are when you have, like, that part of hospitality, and that's, like, what drives you. Like, any kind of disappointment is, like, 10 times worse inside than anything anyone could ever say.
Yeah, well, the pressure's on you. You put the pressure on yourself, it's not only hospitality, I think it's really just like you're building a business and like it's your baby and the pressure you're putting is on yourself and you
And the
want to
risk is on
the
yourself,
risk is on yourself. The risk, it's the biggest thing.
your name is
Yeah.
on the door, and that's it. Like, the
Yeah,
buck stops there, you know?
exactly. So are you being asked to like schedule people hundreds of people's flights? Like is that what you
Mhm.
mean? Oh my goodness.
Yeah, sometimes.
Wow.
Sometimes we are.
Wow.
Or, like,
That's
deal with their
amazing.
luggage and their lost luggage in foreign countries, all kinds of crazy things, friends.
Oh my gosh, that's
But it's
wild.
fun. Yeah, it's fun, and I love, like, we actually love that kind of stuff. It's like, that's what makes the good stories. Someone earlier asked me, I was actually this girl, um, there was a college girl who is wants to get into event planning, and she was doing, like, a questionnaire for some class that she's in, and she was like, "Can I interview?" And I was like, "Sure." And she said, "Well, um, what's the craziest thing or whatever, you know?" And I was like, it's not so much that it's when the crazy thing is happening, it's that it's the postmortem of it all. Is like the hardest, craziest, insane ones in the moment, like you just want to die because you're like, oh my God, this is so hard and I haven't slept in so many hours and we're gonna figure it out. But the stories on the backside are like the things of legend, and you're like, okay, this is phenomenal. And someday it'll be a White Lotus season.
Exactly. I feel like this needs to be a reality show. Like someone needs to do a reality show on wedding planners. It just has to
Yeah.
happen.
Well, only when the wedding planner is retired.
So, yeah, fine. Okay. We'll wait. We'll wait for it.
No secrets before then, friends. No secrets before then.
Fine, fine. We'll agree to wait.
Yes.
Okay, so I know that um, you have many sides, and the wedding side is not the only side to you. So I want to dig a little bit into how you've taken this entrepreneurial side of you and sort of pulled it out into other aspects of your life and other projects that you're working on, because I know you have other things under your belt or in your sleeves, wherever they hide. And so, yeah, tell us a little bit about that because I am super curious.
Yeah. So I actually started a company with this amazing guy who does a lot of our lighting. His name's Jacob Tao, and he owns a company called Jacob Co-Creative, and they do kind of lighting in tricky situations, kind of all over the world. And he and I actually, in 2020, we were just iterating. We iterate a lot. We're like, "Hey, what if we could change this about this lighting fixture?" Or like, "Could you go and like 3D print me this other thing?" And what if we tried this and it could mount and it could be solar powered and it doesn't have to have any wires, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so we were kind of iterating, and like coming out of COVID, we were doing a lot of tinted weddings. And I was like, "Oh my god, this whole kind of setup that surrounds the infrastructure of the tent is really just, like, not at all aesthetically pleasing, frankly. And it's loud, and it's messy, and it's noisy." And so we actually came up with the idea to do kind of a next generation generator, that is it's powered by the sun, basically. So it's a solar powered generator that runs silently. And, it's yeah, we're really excited, and so it's been kind of 5 years in the making. It's called Lou. which stands for Logistical Offsite Operations, which is like a horribly long name. So Lou is the short, cute version. And so it actually just the first model just got finished being built, and it actually is going to power a wedding the first weekend of October. And so I it's kinda wild. It's really cool. It for those of you who are listening who might be in the wedding planning space, it can power 12 20-amp circuits for up to 12 hours kind of at full tilt. So it has a lot of power, and it can really solve a lot of problems. It's also silent, which is really cool. So no fumes, none of that. It's aesthetically pleasing. It's all black. It, like, kinda blends in at night. And then, and it also has Wi-Fi on board. So it's just kind of trying to solve a lot of problems that I experience a lot in the field in my job um and just try to solve for all those problems in one unit. And so yeah, it's really exciting. It's about to launch. The website, everything will go live really the first week of October.
Wow. That is so cool. And what a cool way to like build something that's so different from what you've built before, but yet is still in line with sort of the industry and what the industry needs. I'm sure there are planners listening that are like, how do I get my hands on this? So how do they get their hand? Are you starting to distribute? Like, are you guys already in a position where you're going to be distributing? Is it local to just Texas
Nope,
or
it can go
what's your
anywhere in the
okay?
United States, basically, it'll be a rental just like a normal generator, and then it'll be brought to you, there'll be a technician, all the things, and you'll be able to find more at lupower.co.
That is amazing. That is so cool.
We're so excited.
I
It's game changing,
I
it's
mean,
really
as somebody who's used generators and tents and has put those things up and has heard the noise that they make, like, it is just crazy that it took this long for somebody to do this, so I am so happy that you did, and also, I'm very curious about how, how you sort of pulled, like, your experience from building a wedding planning company, right, into building what is now hardware, right? Like this is a very different line of building in a very different vertical. So how did you find parallels from your previous experience and bring that to building this business?
yeah. What I think is great actually is that there's 3 founders now, and so all 3 of us have built other different types of businesses, right? So one of our founders, Brian DeLuca, he built a sock subscription business. It ended up on Shark Tank and all the things, so he kind of knows that, like, manufacturing vertical. Then Jacob has kind of been in manufacturing his own lights for quite some time, and they own their own business, and then, obviously, I'm, like, on the wedding side of this whole thing. Um and so it has been an interesting combination, you know? It A lot of it has just been from, like, not doing the things that we did early on in our other businesses, right? Like, it's nice to have the hindsight of mistakes, right? You're like, "Oh, I'm never doing that again." You know what I mean? Like, there is a strict accountant who's, like, taking care of everything. Like, for all of us, this is it. She is in charge, and that's what that is, you know? And so, it's good. You know what your strengths are, and you hire out the rest, frankly. And that's been the biggest thing I think we've taken away from this is, like, know what your lane is, know what part you're playing, and then play the part. And it's been, 5 years in the making, and so I'm so excited to finally, like, we turned it on, like, I think 2 weeks ago, um, and it's just been on ever since. The cool thing about it is it actually never turns off.
Wow. So there doesn't
Yeah.
need to be someone managing the generator like there used to
You're
be.
gonna manage it, like, from your app. You're gonna manage it
Wow.
from your phone, and it'll tell you all the information that you need. You don't actually turn it on and off. The 2 of us, you and I, could go to an event, and we could actually set it up ourselves.
That's amazing.
It's really cool. And then there's, like, inside, there's these little mini generators, and so each little mini generator can run independent of the big generator for up to 2 hours. So you can, like, deploy it at the ceremony, and then you can reallocate it because it moves like a suitcase, and so you move it to, like, the cocktail hour, and then you use the cocktail hour one and the one that was at the ceremony, and you move it over here and power the photo booth. So you can redistribute power very easily without, like, these huge crazy wires and all of this ugly, ugly infrastructure. It's very we've tried to make it as user-friendly and as easy as possible. Our goal was like a 10-year-old needs to be able to operate this
Yeah.
piece of machinery, and so if a 10-year-old can do it, then anybody can do it.
That's amazing and so needed in this industry that's all about aesthetics and the experience and like, you get the experience, but oftentimes you don't see what's happening behind the scenes or behind the tent wall, and it's that, like, someone is fussing with some loud generator and, like, you can't get it to work or gotta manage it, and it's just amazing that you guys are doing this. You said you're building for 5 years. What did the 5 years look like? Like, what have you guys gone through over the past 5 years to kinda get to this launch, which I'm sure has been a lot, knowing myself what it takes to get to a launch and the push that is required, but give me, like, the summary, the Cliff Notes version of, like, what did it look like over the 5 years from, like, inception of this idea to getting to
Mhm.
launch?
Yeah, totally. I mean, it did iterate. What's funny about the name Lou is actually it was originally going to be inside a restroom trailer, and so
Mm.
that's why we were kind of cheekily calling it Lou. And and so then we realized, no, really, people really just want the generator. They don't 100% want the restroom trailer and the generator. Maybe there will be an iteration of that down the road. But but we realized the generator is the right way. And then it was just for trying to figure out how much power we actually needed and how that power could be stored. And I think also part of it was like the idea was a little ahead of its time. And so it's taken a little while for the technology to actually get to the place where it was like, okay, this is actually doable.
Mm.
And I think that was all the different iterations of like, okay, what do the batteries look like? And what do all the different components look like? And they're changing and they're shifting and oh, are they getting smaller or they're getting lighter or and there's been lots of change. And finally we got to this place of like being able to get it um to an actual prototype that works. It's been powering Jacob's house for, like, 3 months, so it's doing quite well.
You're dumb.
And yeah, so it has been an iteration, and a lot of it has been about the technology side, which really, is not something that I knew a lot about before going into this process. I have learned a lot about power. I understand how to talk about power. I understand how to explain power, and that's been a fun education process. Um, but it's been really cool to watch it ebb and flow, and then also actually is can solve actual problems that we have, in this industry, and I think actually beyond this industry, frankly, this is just where we're starting because this is what we know.
100%. I mean, I think there's so much opportunity here, and the process you went through, I think, is so one that would resonate with so many founders and entrepreneurs. Like, that is just what you gotta do. Yeah, you got an idea, and then you're kind of flailing around, iterating, trying to figure out the path till you, like, figure it out and you figure out what people want, and then you just go. So I love that you guys did that, and that's amazing. I can't wait to see it out in the world and at another next event that I go to, maybe the next wedding that is needs a generator, I'll see Lou there, and I'll be like, "I know him." It's very cool. Very, very cool. Okay, I wanna kinda close up and start to, ask you a few rapid fire questions. So, tell me the one, like, absolute wedding do not do, like, faux pas, like, don't do it, that you would say is your recommendation to brides
Yes,
or
do
couples?
not have an A-list, B-list, and invite people later.
Mm, why not?
People can change their
I did
mind.
that. Why not?
People can change their mind. If
Mm,
you sent them an invitation on the front side, they could always come back to you and say yes now, and you've already sold their spot
have you seen that happen? What do people
all the
do?
time.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. You
No,
gotta then
no. You're
increase the
out.
seats.
Yeah, maybe you can't.
Oh gosh. Oh gosh.
So,
What is the biggest or what's the most, like, underrated like, wedding vendor or wedding design piece that people, like, don't realize or don't think about that you
man,
think is, like, so important to the wedding kind of aesthetic and overall experience?
the bar.
Mm,
The
interesting.
place where people spend the most time at an event is the bar. And so you can never under design a bar because it really can be your make or break situation and is what people will remember.
That is so true. That is so true.
Here's the thing
Um,
is
I actually when I ask people who've recently been to a wedding, they oftentimes are like, "Oh, the bar was like that's what I hear. The bar was just like, I don't know, it wasn't that great or was just like, there like someone was just serving up some cups of drink. Like, people do underestimate the bar. People remember that. They'll remember if the bar wasn't good.
They will, and
Um,
they have to stand in line at the bar, right? So
yes,
they're
they're
paying
staring
your
at it.
attention, they're staring at it, they're
Yes.
looking at it. If the bar is within the vibe, it's right.
Totally true. Couldn't agree more. What is the one thing you would tell somebody if they wanted to start a bit, really any business, but maybe also specifically like in the wedding space or the creative
Mhm.
space? Like, what is the one tip you'd give somebody that's looking to start?
I would say go work for a hotel.
Hmm.
Number 1, work for a hotel. You'll learn everything that you need to learn. It will let you learn how to do things and how not to do things, and it will teach you everything you need to know.
That's so good. Such good advice. It's the apprenticeship model, right? Like, you just gotta
Mhm.
go and learn from someone, and in this industry, a hotel sounds like the perfect place to do it, and just watch it get done, right? I feel like in a hotel, you're in the hub, you get to see it from all angles. To your point, you see the planners, you see the venue, you see all the vendors coming in, you see the
Mhm.
clients,
You
um,
see how the
see
whole
it
web
all.
works together, and also you're in the hot seat too, because you are the person who is responsible for all of that, right? All the
Mhm.
vendor communication comes into you, and then you have to then disseminate that information to the hotel. But if something goes wrong in the valet, they're not yelling at the valet, they're yelling at you. So you have to become a very good communicator to make sure everybody has all the information that they need.
Yeah, so true, so true. Which leads me to my last question. How do you stay organized? How do you keep all this in your head to get, because you were doing multiple productions at a time with, like,
Yeah.
many plates up in the air spinning, and now you've got this other business. How are
Yes.
you keeping it all straight and together? Like,
Yes.
what is your
Lots
trick?
Lots of systems, friends, you know? We have a Google Drive where everything lives. It is everyone's responsibility to save everything in the Google Drive, so if you open it, it's there. We use a system called Aisle Planner that is where everything lives. It's client facing on the budget side, so it's fully updated all the time. And they also do their seating and everything through that kind of hub, which works really well. And then we right now use Slack. We're about to transition over to Asana, but we use Slack for internal communication and to-do lists, and it keeps us all
Keeps you firing on all cylinders.
firing on all cylinders.
I
So,
love that. I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
thank you
This
for
was
having.
such a pleasure, and so many hot tips in this, that I know, whether you're a planner, whether you're getting married, whether you're building a business, everyone can benefit from just your story. So thank you for sharing.
Oh my gosh, thank you.